everyone, welcome back. It's Absolute Glover, and we have a quick tip video on Cezanne, one of his still life paintings. This one was requested in the comments below, so if you like an artist and you'd like to see them analyzed, leave a comment below and I'll see if I can get to them. Also, if you see an artist that's in one of the comments, you can put a like by it, and that'll let me know more people want to see that one. I can prioritize that for you. So right here we have Cezanne's still life, and we've got multiple elements within the composition. But let's first start with the grid. Now, to find the ratio of the grid, you will find the image size, and what I usually do is just divide the pixels into each other. So 3200 divided by 2082. That'll give you a ratio of 1.53. Then you can look in the back of the Dynamic Symmetry book. The ratio guide will show you all these ratios, and that'll help you narrow down which grid they might have used. So the 1.5 is the most obvious choice, but in this case, if we line up the 1.5, we'll see a little bit on the edges. It's not quite perfect, so that leads me to believe that he might have used a different grid. So go back to that ratio guide. And the next one that's closest is, so here we go, 1.543 is the overlapping increment 2 of the root 7. And all these grids are made, all the grids within the ratio guide are made except for the ones that are subtracting squares. So in the grid package you'll find this 1.543 already made. So you can slap it on the composition and see how it works when you're trying to figure out how the artist used the grid, and it fits perfect. So next thing we do is see how it aligns with the elements within the composition, and we can see right here with just the basic armature we've got this pear locking in, top of this apple, top of this one locking in, this pear is locking into this Baroque diagonal, these stems are locking into this horizontal, the top of the picture is locking in here. So with just these minimal lines, he's locking in quite a few things already. So we can determine that the rectangle's the perfect size and multiple elements are locking in, so we can pretty much assume that this is the grid that he used. So when you have more elements within the composition, you can break the grid down even further. So this is the major area divisions, and we've got 84 total. Not that you need to use 84 total, but if you've ever used dynamic symmetry, all you do is when you're developing your sketch for this, you will just follow the lines and sketch in and go around in this. See how this locks in? You'll be sketching going around and also paying attention to balance and other techniques, which we'll get into right now. So the center of the composition acts as a fulcrum, like a teeter-totter. So you want to have balance from left to right. So if we put a vertical center line there, we'll see how he's balancing the elements from left to right here. There's not more weight or visual interest on one side than the other. So that's one of the major flaws with the rule of thirds, is it teaches you how to put something in one of the third crosshairs, but it doesn't teach you how to balance with the counterpart. So you need balance from left to right. That's very important. And luckily it comes quite naturally to most people that aren't following the rule of thirds. So that's the balance. And let's check out the Arabesque he's created. You might be able to see it, you might not, but I'm going to point it out now. Let me just draw it in. And this adheres to the law of continuity, which is a Gestalt psychology principle. So let's draw this in real quick, and forgive my drawing skills. This goes down here. You can see this movement, right? Going through these pieces of fruit. So there's the Arabesque. He's also using aspect of view within this picture. So the picture is sideways instead of with the handle maybe like right here where you can't really identify it as well. So he's paying attention to aspect of view. The pear is aspective because he's got it in the perfect position so we can tell its shape very easy. If this is a pear, it's not a very aspective view. It looks more like an apple because, well, there's the top anyway, but if this pear was sitting the same position as the apple and we were just seeing the bottom, we wouldn't really be able to tell it's a pear unless he's got the top coming out and a stem coming up right there. But this is the perfect aspect of view he's got going on for the pear, the picture. This one's even good right here, show the perfect shape of the pear. This one too. Okay, so that's aspect of view. Color variation, that's one thing that a lot of beginners really don't pay attention to. Aside from composition, the color variation slips past a lot of beginners. So if we look at the background, he doesn't have a solid green color, purple color, or blue color or anything like that. He's varying it with these different colors right here. So we've got purple, green, yellow, a little bit of red here, a little bit of neutral tan color. So he's varying the background, that's one thing, but also look at this picture. He's got yellow, blue, a little bit of rose color, some darker red, green, all this variation. Also with the pears, he's got red. This is actually, I wanted to point this out. Most masters use 4 colors in different hue variations to create that color harmony. So red, green, yellow, and blue are the 4 colors, and there's variations like purple and pinks, right? Those are the variations. But he's got red, yellow, green, and then we've got the variations of blue in here, okay? So he's using all the 4 colors. He's using color variation, other techniques like aspective view, arabesque, balance. Got overlapping shapes. We don't want any shapes to be kissing, so he's got proper overlapping here. Kissing is right here. We could say this would be almost kissing. If 2 edges are meeting and you can't really identify which one's in front of the other, that could create an illusion that's unwanted or desirable. If you're Giorgio Morandi, I'll put a picture up where he purposely creates coincidences. Everything's kissing each other, and that's part of his artistic style. But right here, since I'm saying this is almost kissing, but we also have to look at the contrast within them, okay? So he's got a lot of shade here. If you squint, they're not really touching each other anyway because of the contrast he's created. This is more subdued in the background, and this comes forward. So even if they were touching, it wouldn't be that big of a flaw because he's controlled the contrast quite well. All right, so turn that black and white and then blur it. So doing this, it kind of simulates what we see when we're squinting at our work. And if you're not squinting at your work, I guarantee it'll help you see the values a lot better. So right here we see all the values, the lightest lights and the darkest darks. You can see this plate stands out, pops out quite a bit. So does this fruit on the right side. And then we've also got this. So I'm going to go to edge flicker. Edge flicker is high contrast near the edge. So we don't want any high contrast near the edge. So what happens when this shadow is meeting the light background and the edge of this dark picture? We've got a little bit of distraction there, okay? And we need to subdue that. Same with this. This is high contrast near the edge, so it needs to be subdued in order to not pull attention away from the main subject, okay? So what we do is, let me turn this off, and I'm gonna just use Photoshop to darken these areas right here and control them a little better. So if you're painting it, you just want to pay attention to these areas of high contrast, and typically in your drawing stage you want to identify these areas so you can control it better within the painting phase. You don't want to really be surprised by it when you're painting. Okay, so that's edge flicker, and we want to check out the GAC, but with this black and white blurred version, you can pretty much identify that the highest contrast area is going to be right around here. This is where he's pulling our eyes, but also the color of this one, the yellow with the red and surrounded by the blue and all the dark contrast. He's pulling our eyes here and here. What's the main subject? I would say it's hard to deny the power of these colors, but then I would say this is also bringing a lot of attention, and then the picture. So let's turn on the GAC. This is just using the threshold layer adjustment in Photoshop, and you can slide it back and forth, but I've got a video on that on my website. By the way, check out my website. It's almost up to 700 articles solely based on composition and design, so if you're wanting to learn more, definitely check that out. So that's the GAC. And another cool thing before we end is if you're designing your composition or a photo or whatever, try and flip it, and it's going to change the balance and the movement. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But when we flip this Cezanne, we can see at first he's got this on the sinister diagonal. Okay, we see a movement going from upper left to lower right. That's the sinister diagonal. And we can see that when you look at the grid. Okay, this is a sinister diagonal, this is the Baroque diagonal, and then these are the reciprocals. Alright, so he's got this going on the Baroque diagonal now. If we flip it, most of us read left to right, and then compositions within paintings or photos usually go from bottom to top because of perspective and the way things rise up in the composition the further they get. Check out any landscape painting or photo and you'll see that. So when we flip this, he's got the movement on the Baroque diagonal now, which is really nice, but then we've got this shape of the picture, which is also drawing our attention. So what we want to do is, usually when you've got the sinister diagonal, okay, and you've got high contrast near this diagonal, it creates a movement down and back up again. I call it magnetic momentum. So what it does is it creates this movement because of the way we read and the way we read a painting as well. So we read left to right. If all the high contrast is here, our eyes can wander around. Okay, check out the rest of the painting, and then they're drawn back up here. And since it's on the sinister diagonal, our eyes can kind of move down and then easily move back up. Okay, but if they're flipped, what happens is if high contrast is in these areas, the upper right or the lower right, our eyes can get trapped down there because of the high contrast and the way we read. We're reading left to right, and there's nothing over here to pull our eyes back to this area. So they get kind of trapped in this area. So you want to avoid high contrast in these areas if you're not going to design your composition to bring eyes back over here. But we can see that Cezanne designed it how he wanted to, and he designed it on the sinister diagonal. So that's Cezanne, his still life here. Looks kind of simple if you're just a painter and placing shapes, but it's full of design techniques and color variation, all that stuff. So if you're wanting to learn more, check out my site, or there's tons of free videos here on YouTube you can check out. Be sure to comment below if you like an artist that you'd like me to analyze, and I'll see if I can get to that. Also, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, and the site would not exist if it weren't for you. So thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys later.